Hello, I am Ben Braxley, APTA Georgia president and a member of APTA Orthopedics podcast team. I'm coming to you today after my conversation with Emily Hawkins, APTA Virginia's president. Today we shared a really wonderful 30-minute conversation about member engagement. Obviously, this is a chapter president to chapter president conversation, but it spurred from the way that APTA Virginia has started to develop a framework to look at proactively member engagement and member involvement as a chapter level. I think that this is a great and relevant conversation to really all facets of APTA orthopedics, whether that's the special interest groups or subcomponents thereof. I think it's relevant to other chapters as well. I hope you'll find the same. Thank you for listening and viewing APTA Orthopedics Podcast. Hello, and welcome to the APTA Orthopedics Podcast. I am Ben Braxley. I'm a member of the podcast team, and I am joined today by President Emily Hawkins of APTA Virginia. She and I connected through the Chapter President's Council. I currently serve as APTA Georgia president. She's president in Virginia. She asked a very stimulating question about how other APTA components are defining member engagement and showed and shared what APTA Virginia is doing. APTA Virginia is a little larger than APTA Georgia. We thought this could be an interesting conversation and relevant to member engagement at the patient-client level, but certainly also at the component level. So we'll share a little bit of APTA Virginia's kind of approach. She'll do some of that, I'll do some of that. But I also just want to say in starting, I am APTA Georgia president. I also serve as a senior program coordinator in the Center for Physical Therapy and Movement Science at Emory University. So that's kind of the day job. So I wear the hat of kind of bridging clinical practice, research, enterprise, APTA hat, and I'd love for Emily to share a little bit of her day job hat versus the APTA Virginia hat as we start this conversation today. So Emily, go for it.
Yeah. Thanks, Ben. Really excited to have this opportunity to talk about you and have other people listen in. So I am a clinical assistant professor at Old Dominion University. So in addition to that hat, I wear the hat of being the director of clinical education. So really focused on how our students are connecting with clinicians and learning in authentic clinical environments. How are they engaging with their patients? So again, so very relevant. And I'm finishing the first year of my term as president of APTA Virginia. I was just reelected, so I will be here through 2028. Excited to see what the future holds.
Excellent. Well, Virginia is lucky to have you. And I love the thought-provoking, just so everyone knows, each chapter president doesn't have all the answers. And so we do network and reach out to each other. I've reached out to the Chapter President's Council with a Medicaid reimbursement tracking question and actually had people really do some interesting reporting out of the way things work in other states. And so this particular question was posed about what other chapters are doing around member engagement. How do you define it? What do you track? Is it changing? Is it changing whether that's generationally, or is it changing just as people are coming out of COVID and maybe they want a little bit more in person again? And it's deeper than that, but that's part of it. And I was really impressed with the different tiers in APTA Virginia's definition. I kind of lumped them, or they were lumped into like event engagement, volunteer engagement, whether that's appointed or elected, and then just like general membership engagement. Emily, what led to that framework? And we'll get into some more specifics, but like how do you think about those things now?
Yeah, we did our chapter strategic planning, overhaul, update, refresh, whatever you want to call it. We did that in April of this year, so April of 2025. And it was really great because our facilitator does this and he works in real estate. He's done strategic planning for a smattering of organizations. It's like I once did strategic planning for like the pork people of America, like incredible spread, whatever. And so we asked him like, how do you define engagement? And he's like, well, the first and lowest tier is just somebody paying dues instead of saying, yes, I'll be a member. And we absolutely need people to do that, but we can't be a sustainable, valuable organization if people are only paying their dues. So then that us to think about our leaders and our volunteers. What does it look like for us to be a sustainable organization moving forward? We've got to have people to do the work and to lead the effort. And then you talk about COVID. We tried some stuff in the past 5 years that were in response to the pandemic, and some of that worked and some of that right now we're really happy to be back together. So really focusing on our events and making that a place where we can see value.
Yeah, that's great. And I can say APTA Georgia is going through kind of a similar evolution, a little bit around events. We're planning, we call it Impact. It's kind of our annual conference. So in 2026, we're trying to move to a more family or like group engagement dynamic, people back in person, like with an evening event. I think a lot of chapters moved away. We all had to move away from that. And now it's like, okay, what's the value add? Like, where can we either pull in like interprofessional speakers? Like, where can we pull in like family dynamics into it? We see that as a really positive thing. And what we hope to see from that is one of the points in APTA Virginia's kind of framework, which is repeat participation rates increasing. So there are always things in Georgia, there's like a biennial renewal cycle. And so like ethics and jurisprudence comes up every 2 years. I just did the jurisprudence part. But we want to like think about those off-year engagement opportunities. And we want to think about repeat participation rate. And I'm taking that a lot from Virginia because it was really eye-opening. Like, how do we get people to show up, not for the one preeminent speaker on something, but then also carry on throughout. So what was that just obvious in Virginia, or did that come from following conversations with your facilitator?
I think we talked about, we definitely wanted to have that event participation rate, and then the leaders that were in the room as we had that conversation, we just weren't satisfied with getting somebody to come to something once. So that event, it can be an in-person event. Our fall conference is called Fall Summit. That's in just a couple of weeks here for us. We've shifted that to more of a CSM style. So we have tracks and more opportunities. We have an in-person lobby day in Richmond for advocacy every January. And then we have 3 regions, and each of those regions does in-person meetings. But kind of similar to Academies, we have our special interest groups that are across the state, and they are collaborating through Zoom, video conference, email, those types of things. And then we also have a learning center where we record meetings or events, education sessions, and we can upload those to our platform, and folks can watch things that way. So really just this opportunity to track synchronous, asynchronous, in-person or virtual participation. And yes, that's data for us about engagement, but it's also data for us for how to put in our program moving forward.
Yeah, would you say that do you have enough information yet to see if there are different trends about who still wants online versus who wants the in-person? Like, I'm assuming you have, if you have 3 regions, you have like a regional director from each. Are they able to tap into those insights yet? Or is this still kind of future planning and laying the foundation?
Some of it's still future planning. We were previously 6 districts, and because of changes in organization in terms of values and people wanting to volunteer their time or feeling like they were equipped to, we were having trouble filling 2 directors from each district. So we combined into regions, and we're really hoping to see more, I hate to say recipe or cookbook, but more templated programming to make it easier for someone to step into a director role. That this is something that is embedded and tried in another district. You adapt it to your context and keep moving. So we're hopeful to see more of that regional, connection and involvement moving forward. But right now we're really excited about Fall Summit and some of the changes around Lobby Day. And we're hoping that those events, which will appeal to every member across the Commonwealth, that at those things we can really push and promote those regional events and engagement opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, there's not great recipes are worth repeating, right? I mean, we have our things that are in rotation in our family. So, if it works well, I don't see anything wrong with that. APTA Georgia, similarly, we went from, I think, 9 districts when I was a new grad, and now we have 3 as well. We call them local area networks, but it's a geographic kind of space. which just gives us an opportunity to talk a little, like geography is a barrier, and coming through COVID, when we got very comfortable with online things, I think about, Virginia and Georgia being defined by a geography, but within that geography having, tight areas around Atlanta where, 5 miles might be an hour in a vehicle versus, for example, APTA Orthopedics, that there is no geographic barrier and they can pull from anywhere, anyone who's interested. And I think that's a strength, but it's also a challenge. For your regions, Emily, like, what do you think has pulled people to like a content area? I'm trying to think of like the push and pull between geography and clinical content or back and forth.
Yeah, it's hard to say because like Northern Virginia for us is obviously our most populated region, but they have opportunities to connect with APTA Maryland, APTA DC, depending on where they're at, APTA West Virginia. And so they have more opportunities. And I think it's also just easier. It's like, there's so many people here. Surely someone's doing something. And it turns out no one is, or very few people are. So that has actually been a big focus for us in trying to find members and leaders and volunteers in that Northern Virginia area. I would just say for us here in Virginia, yes, it's clinical, but a lot of it has been around advocacy, like a big push for us to get direct access in recent years. And that has just been a really unifying thing for us across all of the regions. So I guess in terms of clinical, mostly orthopedics, private practice kind of focus. So we're excited to see what other communities there are. Like our pediatric special interest group has always been just like knocking it out of the park. That we see people at those PSIG events that we don't see at other APTA Virginia events. So pediatrics, say orthopedics, and private practice have been big clinical strengths for us. Yeah.
That's great. Does APTA Virginia do anything with a clinic that has like I've had this idea in Georgia. Wouldn't it be great if we were like broadcasting some, whether it's continuing education or like a member engagement opportunity directly to a clinic that has people who are members? Like, has there ever been almost like an approach of like having a hub for people to come together, not in the context of like PT Pub Night or a particular journal club? Has anything like that been tried in Virginia? I think that could be a successful model, depending on the population.
Yeah, not that I know of. And at this point, we joke, I've been really involved since I graduated in 2013, that at this point I am one of the fossils in our organization, just because I've been around a while. 12 years is a while. So yeah, I'm not aware of anything like that, but certainly does sound like a good opportunity. And again, thinking about how APTA might be changing some of their membership options. If there is an opportunity for a company, for a clinic or a chain of clinics to buy membership for their PTs and PTAs, maybe that is, a way that we tap into and really serve those members who are part of a specific chain or clinic.
That's a great pivot too, because things are changing for APTA National. Like certainly we're all trying to iterate and keep membership engagement and market share, as chapters, and things are changing. So, some of our listeners and watchers may not be aware, viewers, I think is what we're supposed to call you. Thanks for watching, even if you're a viewer, is a new strategic plan for APTA. And I can speak as APTA Georgia, we will be looking to pivot our chapter strategic plan to align more directly. So it's not something that's just created in-house, like we're feeding on and off of the pillars of the APTA strategic plan, which hopefully will lead to better like micro grant applications. Like if we can point directly at what we're doing locally and show that it is in very good alignment nationally, I think that will help our members. There are often these grants that come up. I don't know, did APTA Virginia, did you apply for one a couple of years ago?
Yeah, we got one of the public awareness grants. So we looked at some of the research about APTA or, physical therapy, like perceptions of the profession and kind of what some of the opportunities were. And then we hired subject matter experts to write to 4 of those topic areas to make a 2-page flyer. And so those are available on our website, vpta.org, and they're also available through the APTA community, and a component can adapt those and put their branding on it. So that was what we used our grant funds for. And we hope to continue that initiative in a different iteration moving forward.
That's great. I love the resource center that we have access to, and I think all components would, for the rebranding and for putting that out there. I definitely think that's a way, both for like members and non-members, but also the public to have a little bit more name recognition of what is the American Physical Therapy Association. You know, I still in my conversations with non-PTs feel like I have to say the acronym every time. Which is fine. I mean, it's a specific acronym specific to our profession, but it helps. It helps each time we do that, and it helps each time we have co-branding. You know, APTA Georgia did. We decorated a scarecrow in the Atlanta Botanical Garden. We called him No Fall Paul, and it's, you know, for PT month. Happy PT month, everyone. You know, we're recording this in October, and it's just another way to get the logo and the brand out there. I think that one of the many places that APTA Orthopedics shines is in the educational offerings. The learning platform of APTA Orthopedics and the series are really unparalleled. And I think that's where the clinical expertise, whether you're member or non-member, where it's such a good hook. And another thing, not to be a spoiler, but APTA Orthopedics is moving to free student membership starting in 2026. Hopefully they don't have to edit that out, but that's something that we're both aware of through the Chapter President's Council. And it's another way that we're going to be tracking to see if things are successful. Does that opportunity to get behind the scenes knowledge transfer into long-term volunteerism membership contribution? What do you think, Emily? Do you think it will?
Yeah, you know, there's data to support that members that are a member of a section or academy are more likely to remain an APTA member. And, you know, I feel like most people understand this, but just to make sure we're all on the same page, you have to be an APTA member. And when you do that, you opt into a state where you live and or where you practice. And then the section and academy membership is on top of that. So being a member of Virginia, if you live in Virginia, that's kind of necessary to the whole thing versus you opting into, yes, I want to be that member of orthopedics. Yes, I want to be that member of the sports academy. That's above and beyond. So already demonstrating those individuals have a little something extra. They're looking for a little something more.
Yeah, I think it really helps with like defining identity. And if you identify as like a specialty focused clinician and that already has a home that is not geographically tied, as someone who's moved around quite a bit, I've practiced in Georgia, Oregon, Washington, California, you know, it's really nice to have the clinical content home in addition to your geographic home. And certainly students often, you know, I do know that some students will maintain a membership in their home chapter as well as the chapter where they're in their program. I think that also allows like comparing sizes of organizations, approaches to organizations in a very positive way, which is great. So I think that only helps over time.
Yeah, and we're here in Southeastern Virginia. We've got any type of military base you want. We've got it here in Southeastern Virginia. Obviously, a strong Navy presence. My husband's a reservist, so you know, still a military spouse in that regard. But I know for my students and my colleagues and my coworkers who know they're going to have that transient lifestyle, that connection to the academy or the section is really important for them because they know their time in Virginia is limited. So yeah, just all the more reason to have that blend of engagement opportunities and resources.
And knowing where to look, right? So what does APTA Virginia do to recruit like volunteers, whether it's for like a task force or a committee or to run for office? Like what does that look like in Virginia?
We have a nominating committee, and so they will attend our chapter events or our regional events and just really get to know people. They will contact the directors, even if they can't be at the meeting. Hey, can you send us a sign-in sheet? And they're looking to see who's been there more than once. Oh, this person's been involved before. Maybe it's time for them to get involved again. We've really been doing a lot more with trying to liaise with the different PT and PTA programs across the state, so that we've got a pulse and a sense of who's there, whether that's a faculty member who can serve or a student who can be involved in our student special interest group, or transitioning into our early professional special interest group, or just a full-fledged volunteer appointment or elected position. So really rely on that nominating committee. And then some of it, we really, this past year, have relied on a lot of word of mouth. This volunteer, like, I'm really enjoying serving with APTA Virginia. I know that there's this opportunity available. I think you'd be great. We have a conversation with myself and our executive director. Yeah, it sounds like a great fit. Let's make it happen. So our nominating committee and word of mouth have been really critical for us over the past year.
That's great. Yeah, we in our current strategic plan, we said that we wanted our board to identify like 20 new names to be considered, whether it's for appointments or committee work or elected office, as well as having other kind of sources for names to come forward. And that's really about conversations and about having, on-ramps that people see that they're aware of. APTA Georgia is a little unique. We have the RM Barney Poole Leadership Academy that is kind of like a two-step process to be certified as having graduated from the Leadership Academy. That's a good pathway for individuals as well. We've definitely had leaders come through that have gone on for other offices and awareness. I really love that Virginia obviously has a storied history in terms of politics, and I'm not surprised that you're very active politically as a chapter. Georgia is becoming more so. We have a lot of irons in the fire, and obviously, APTA Orthopedics has a huge footprint in terms of voice in APTA's House of Delegates on professional issues. And as you alluded to earlier, like the interwoven layers of private practice and orthopedics, and the majority or significant stake of physical therapists and physical therapist assistants around the country being tied to orthopedic practice, I think is, makes that voice all the more important to have strong leadership and good conversations about that engagement. Mm-hmm. One of the other things that caught my eye in the Virginia framework was wanting to have a specific way of measuring volunteer satisfaction. Where does that stand currently? Where do you hope to go with that?
Yeah, so we are really about to launch that. We just closed our election season, and so we're going to be saying see you later to some of our elected leaders, and we're saying welcome aboard to some new ones, to some new faces. So we really want to use this opportunity to go ahead and pilot a type of volunteer satisfaction survey, probably do some exit interviews with our leaders, and use that to inform both the next survey that, hopefully will be one that we can reuse and really be able to compare across years, just adapt it, but also get insights about ways that we can improve our volunteer and leader orientation. What's the information they needed to know before they started serving? Or if I had known this, that would have been great. As well as we're looking to do, we don't have a leadership academy, or I know Florida has a leadership opportunity as well. We don't have anything like that. So we are looking to establish a pipeline for leadership and use that volunteer satisfaction and exit interview process to really inform what goes into that pathway and that program as well. So gonna be putting out some feelers this fall and seeing what we get. But I'm excited about being able to enter those conversations and to think about what information we need, and to do that with a lot more intention and direction than maybe we would have done last year.
That's excellent. And I wish you the best of success in that. It's been great to have an 11-year history with the Leadership Academy in Georgia. And we continue to iterate and try new things. I'm working with the Leadership Academy actually to try to put together, I think it would be the first of its kind in the PT space, but a campaign school. I actually participated in the American Medical Association PAC, so AMPAC. They have for decades had a campaign school for physicians and physician spouses. My spouse happens to be a physician, showing them how to run for office. Or how to support campaigns for office. So whether you want to be that person or not, here's how the sausage gets made. I think PT, we've gotten very comfortable with the advocacy side. We're a little less comfortable being the person or being the person behind the person, and understanding. It was an intensive few days in DC, but we talked about radio spin. We talked about television spin. We got into the weeds of, depressingly, negative campaign ads are 70% more memorable than positive campaign ads, and that's why everyone uses them, which is a whole nother podcast. I think I won't go down that road too far, but interesting. And social workers have a campaign school. Nurses and midwives have a campaign school, and I think it's time to try something, whether it's APTA Georgia or regionally, and see if we can build some momentum. Down here. We've been very active with our state legislature the last few cycles, and so we do have one PT that's serving. Karen Bennett is in the Georgia House, and we appreciate having her there, but we'd like her to have more allies with the same credentials. So does Virginia, do you have any sitting legislators that are physical therapists?
I think the last session, the closest we got was a pharmacist. We actually didn't have a lot of healthcare providers seated, but we're electing a new governor in just a couple of weeks, and I think the House is going to turn over. So there will be new faces and new professions represented. So we'll see who there is for us to advocate to in January.
Excellent. And it's definitely, I was in a room full of physicians. There are only 3 non-physicians, one other provider there. And, we have so much more in common, even though we often find ourselves, maybe not liking one priority or another. I think it's important to acknowledge that, like, collectively, with the insights that we have from healthcare careers, we're going to be much more aligned in the way that we engage with the public community. So not community of APTA, but the public community around health and ideas of wellness and care. And so that's always important. Good for alliance. Yeah. So I feel like we talked about some of the events that were identified in Virginia's framework, as well as volunteer, making sure that you're looking at retention, you're looking at satisfaction, and having a pathway for people to transition from one phase to the next. You and I, as we were kind of setting up our conversations, talked about, like, are there generational differences, whether that not necessarily online versus not online, but what did you learn? Like, what have you found in terms of how you hope to engage people that are maybe from a different age group than others historically?
Yeah, I love Brene Brown, and she has done a lot recently talking about Gen Z and what it looks like to lead the newer generation that's joining us in associations or in the workplace. And it really resonated with me that she said that you can't use fear as a motivator. So if we can't use fear, and I would hope we wouldn't want to use fear with any generation, but what would motivate newer generations? And I think it is that you think, especially about Gen Z, being digital natives. And so they don't need you to just have a website and have a social media presence. They really need something that's mobile first and something that's personalized and that's flexible and adaptable to their interests and needs. And then one thing I found from ASAE, that's the association for our executive directors, that's their association. And they said that money, meaning, and well-being are really important to Gen Z. So for money, they want financial security. So things that we can do as a state chapter or an academy or APTA is their big push for money. Those are things that are going to help with the financial security for Gen Z. And so frame it that way, and it's going to be meaningful to a lot more than just Gen Z. In terms of meaning, they really want things to be transparent and have integrity, and for what they do to have a good purpose. And I can't think of anything better than APTA's mission statement of building a community that advances the profession of physical therapy to improve the health of society. Clearly, I drink the Kool-Aid, but I think that's a great meaning to organize around. And then well-being, they want that work-life balance. I try to think about this concept of harmony, are the things that I'm doing playing nicely together. And this generation, we talk to them about not being burnt out, and they hear us. They don't want to be burned out. So, and for service, just think about our volunteer pipeline and even volunteer satisfaction. We need to have people step away. We need to have service sabbaticals, and not make people feel like if they say no to an opportunity right now, that there won't be an opportunity to say yes or get into the There will always be an opportunity or avenue to serve and engage and contribute. And if right now is not the season or the time for that, it is okay to say that. And so we just really boldly practice what we're preaching.
I love, you just said service sabbatical, and I don't think I've heard that before. So whether that's Brene Brown or Emily Hawkins, I love it. I definitely plan to use it. Awesome. Awesome.
My secretary, our chapter secretary that just got reelected, she'll cycle off when I cycle off as president. And I said, we've both been really involved since being students. And I was like, when come 2028, we are both well due for an extended service sabbatical. So.
That's fantastic. I'll definitely use that. And I promise, to the viewer or listener, we didn't plan this, but I was listening to a Brene Brown podcast with Adam Grant recently. And she talked about if you find yourself in a place of resentment, you're probably not living in your core values, right? And so being able to define your core values, and that's something that APTA has done, recently in a number of ways, both in terms of our positions through the House of Delegates with our code of ethics, but then also the value of focusing on payment and taking it to a more aggressive tactic than we have in the past with the recent lawsuit. So, I think that it is not unreasonable to say that a significant portion of certainly non-members, but potentially even some members, were in a place of resentment, and now hopefully there's better alignment and more appreciation. Time will tell the success of the tactics, but I think that there's been more vocalized support for the shift than I've heard of many other initiatives. So I'm certainly in support of that as well.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for one, posting to the Chapter President's Council to get the feedback on different ways of defining and characterizing engagement. I really love that your framework gave us a common language to use and created some dynamics, things like that repeat participation rate, things like, be more intentional with volunteer satisfaction assessment. I think these things are really applicable across the spectrum of components of APTA Orthopedics, of national, of committees even. It would be great if more committee chairs knew satisfaction of those that are rotating off. And by extension, if you intend to do it again, what's behind that? What did we do right that you want to keep going? Not just what did we do wrong if you're stepping away. Service sabbatical is one of my big takeaways. And I often will also describe, ability to volunteer as kind of a J-shaped curve. Right after school, you've got maybe a little bit more bandwidth, and then it usually dips with families and practices and pursuit of tenure, and then things start to climb again. So I think that we have great opportunities as a profession. We have great collaborations and good initiatives ahead of us. So maintaining the engagement, maintaining the success, and building on it are things that I appreciate you for, Emily, and your perspective, and I appreciate APTA Orthopedics for giving us a platform to talk about this. But I want to give you the last word. Do you have any closing thoughts for us based on the conversation, or anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, I guess I'll just close with kind of the thought that brought us to this is just that engagement is a spectrum. And I always want to assume best intent of our members, and that if all they can do is pay their dues one year, we're happy for that. And we're going to value them just the same as we value me, who is serving in an elected position and giving a lot of my time. That a member is a member, and each member has a place in APTA Virginia, APTA Georgia, orthopedics, and APTA at large.
Excellent. Well said, Emily. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thanks, Ben.